Another thread that runs through the Red Cross story is pranks. Has seemed to have been a constant running through the band. What is the best prank phone call you ever did that you wish you could share with the world?
Oh, well, there were so many that were just lost to time. But there were these street performers called Elton and Betty White, and I remember when we were making our Show World album, we put them on a conference call with Margaret Cho, and that was really good.
Conference calls were fun. Conference calls,
Okay.
those were fun. I forgot about
there
that.
was all those kind of deep crank calls. I think we talk about it in the book, but not the movie. There was a vocal coach named her name was Gloria Bennett. She was a vocal coach of the Stars, and she advertised in the LA Weekly, and her clients were Bret Michaels, Exene Cervenka, and Vince Neil. So
we knew that we had to be coached by her.
But she also coached. So we pretended we called the
Which we
record
were
label.
coached by her for a few sessions.
Well, we called her and left a message that I was Michael Sweet from Stryper, and that I was going to sue her for destroying my voice.
They go like this.
And then she called his record label and busted. We just got
Which
busted.
happened to be our record label too, and they said that's not Michael Sweet. That sounds like Jeff McDonald. And then Jeff always did most of the prank calls, but I did actually quarterback a prank call to Tito Jackson once.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah, the late.
Yeah, the late Tito Jackson.
It was the late Tito and the late Dee Jackson.
Well, that's very obscure. Yes. My girlfriend at the time worked at a appliance store here in the Valley.
Okay.
And it's back when people paid for things with checks. And Tito's wife I guess she threw it around a lot that she was Dee Jackson of the Jackson family.
Sure, yeah.
And so when my girlfriend got that, when she paid by a check, she immediately wrote the phone number down which is really bad karma, I guess. But at any rate, it was awesome when we called and I got past Dee as Michael asking for Tito.
So you called Tito Jackson.
I did. I got
the home of Tito
and
Jackson.
I literally just said, it's like the lamest Michael Jackson impersonation. I was like, hi, Dee, it's me, Michael. Can I talk to Tito? It was like that. It was so lame. Yeah. And she's like, and she got all flustered and she was excited or something. Yeah. And so she's like, hang on. And then, this guy gets on. Hello? It's like, Tito, hi. Who's this? It's me, Michael. And that's all I did. And they're like, this ain't Michael. And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good.
No, that's a great. Look, I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, yeah.
It just didn't seem like you had a real plan for success.
But we had weird phone numbers. Like I recently found an old phone book from that period.
Okay.
I'm like, why do I have Bobby Gentry's phone number?
Wow. We get a crank called Bobby Gentry? Like, why would you have Bobby Gentry's phone?
It was just another
Did it have an area code?
Yeah, it was 310.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't know that she'd necessarily be a 310 person, but okay.
So but the most consequential was probably your Courtney Love crank call.
Well, that's debatable how consequential it is, but because it was never confirmed. Actually, never confirmed with her. Although I did try to get, I tried to talk about it plainly with her once, and she wasn't talking.
Maybe talking about the question of whether the reason why Red Cross never opened
for Nirvana was because we crank called Courtney.
Yeah.
That's what management always told us.
Sure.
Because we had the same manager, and I was, back to us being competitive, whatever. I finally gave up that fight, and I just wanted a piece of it.
She crank called us back like 5 seconds later.
No, she was great. The crank call was awesome. It was before she was famous.
But she was name dropping Billy from Faith No More. That was her whole thing.
On the crank call?
Yeah, it was very abstract and very bizarre.
Okay, well, that was back in her Faith No More days. But I remember she very much got us back, but she made it an emergency breakthrough from my girlfriend at the time,
Mhm.
Sophia Coppola,
Mhm.
and who was not in town. She wasn't with us or something. Somehow I knew that at that point the jig was up because we didn't even know her. But we were, we were just having fun, I guess at her expense. But the thing was, she definitely served it right back.
Mhm.
And then it seemed like one of those moments like, oh, I guess we're going to be friends with this person. And then that didn't happen. And then a year later or so, she is Mrs. Kurt Cobain. And then another year later, we're begging to go on the road with Mrs. Kurt Cobain's husband's band.
Mhm.
And we kept getting told by management that Courtney said we were mean to her. So,
No, that she said, they called me fat. I never called her
well,
fat.
this is where we go. Courtney says you were mean to her when she was fat.
And then,
what?
No, wait, but then I think she tried to claim that we threw her out of the car on Interstate 5.
No, that's a celebrity skin story.
Celebrity Skin. She was riding up to San Francisco with them, and then they stopped at some truck stop somewhere, and they took off without her in the middle of California. They turned around and picked her up, but I think she tried to blame us for that.
She was very confused in that era.
Mhm. Well, that'd be a thing where you'd kind of be like, you wouldn't even try to go down that road if you knew you left her on the side of the
We would
highway.
remember that.
You'd be just like, well, this is never
Yeah.
going to happen.
It's never going to
That whole
happen. It's
time
never
we
going to
left
happen.
her on,
No.
on the 5.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, prank phone calls. I love them so
There's just
much.
unfortunately, none of them are. I couldn't put it in the movie because there's no record of any of them. So it's hard to like have that. This was so.
It was really funny.
But if you were there, it's
You
just
had
like
to
it doesn't
be
work
there.
in a film.
Wait,
really.
so the crank calls aren't in the movie, right?
Not in the movie.
Okay, right.
No,
Yeah.
no, not in the
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
Once again, because it's not my film.
And it was
Yeah, look,
also,
that would have been your cut.
Yeah,
Would
would
have
have
been-
been my-
thinking. We weren't thinking
Would
about
Would have
saying
making the case for us as like the original Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
Jerky Boys
Yeah,
would have
if you
been
had
anything
recorded
without
them.
us.
Or
I
filmed
did.
like when you were in Beverly Hills, like knocking on like Lucille Ball's door or
Bob
whatever, all that
Dylan's.
stuff, or Bob Dylan's.
We did. We played Ding Dong.
Yeah,
Ditch
Melanie Vamman from the Pandoras. I dared her to knock on Bob Dylan's door and say she's the new neighbor and ask to borrow a cup of sugar, which she did to got his ex-wife.
Did she get a cup of sugar?
No,
Yeah. When did you realize that like this is what living out here is like, and that no one else was experiencing anything like this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we only knew this. This is where we came from.
When did you realize it's like, oh, we were in this weird bubble that
some people have told us. I mean, I remember we just were interviewed by Thurston Moore a little while ago, and he kind of had a story about meeting us and about how he was explaining about where we came from was amazing and everything, everything was great about that. And he's like, here, everything is, we were in New York at the time. Here, everything's just dark and depressing. And we thought that was cool.
Yeah. So it's always just the grass is always greener.
Are blacker, or the asphalt's blacker.
Yeah. But this is like out here as a kid. I just remember being like excited that I went to like this appliance store that Hank Aaron was at.
Oh.
right.
And he was like up on the balcony. Like there was never going to be a chance to like meet Hank Aaron at this thing. He rolled in, waved. They had pre-printed photos.
Oh, yeah.
And weirdly enough, and I'm just actually, my parents were so upset at that Hank Aaron saw how upset they were, and he signed a baseball for my family because I guess my parents looked so irritated by the fact that this guy showed up, waved. And then just left. It was like, hey, Hank.
You just
like somebody
tried
from
to phone it in, and your parents were like, not good enough.
This was in Jersey?
Somerville, New Jersey.
In the 70s,
Yes.
in the 70s, all those appearances never happened where we lived. We would see them on advertisements for them on television. Our friend Cameron, he lived out here in the valley, so he got to go to them. He once went in the 70s, went to a Rodney Allen Rippey riot where the kids were rioting through a department
Long
store.
before there were Black Flag riots, there was a Rodney Allen Rippey riot.
was really the LAPD was cracking down hard on the Rodney Allen Rippey fans at that time. You had to understand what it was. Daryl Gates had just declared war on.
Exactly. If we don't nip it in the butt, it's like the broken window thing. It's like you arrest people for jumping the turnstiles, or it's pandemonium. Because growing up in New Jersey was like the best thing I ever saw was this Hank Aaron thing, or once at like Toys R Us, it was like Lee Majors just like drove past and it was like an ocean of kids, and suddenly it's just like Lee Majors just like waves and just keeps going.
Well, you guys had
what about Ronald McDonald? Did you go to any Ronald McDonald appearances? Because he used to make them in the 70s, and we always missed.
Well, I'm also thinking about the TV show Wonderama. That was in New York.
Oh yeah, it's a Bob McAllister.
Yeah, that was our dream when we were kids to go on that.
I wanted to go on that. I was so close to it, but it might have been a million miles away.
That's what's like for us. The same thing about Hollywood.
Yeah.
They always had bagelettes. I was always like, Lender's bagelettes. I'm like, what's a bagelette? And just find out they're just little bagels.
Oh, was that one of the advertisers on Wonderama?
Like you got Lender's bagelettes if you were on Wonderama.
But you guys used Ross Apollo bicycles on the East Coast. That was always the big prize on that show, the Ross Apollo bicycle. And we didn't know what they were on the West Coast. We rode Schwinn's.
But actually, Jeff was on an episode of the West Coast equivalent to Wonderama, which was a pale equivalent. It was called a kid show called The Grab Bag.
And it was called Grab
Bag.
Grab Bag. Do you remember Grab Bag?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was filmed. I remember that was filmed on Fountain, not far from that picture studio I referenced earlier.
Next to Paramount.
Yeah, and yeah, I just remember that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did meet Tom Carvel once. That was my big my dad was friends with George Steinbrenner's tax lawyer. And so we got to go to Yankee Stadium and sit in Steinbrenner's box.
Wow.
And Tom Carvel himself came in with like a Fudgy the Whale or whatever, like, and delivered it delivered it to the box. That was like the biggest thing.
Melted.
Yeah,
Fudgy
how long
the
did
Whale.
it last?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it came from or how. It was Tom Carvel. It was a big deal.
That's exciting.
No, that was exciting because those commercials were just kind of. Did you have Carvel out here?
No.
We did in the 70s briefly, but it never really took off. There was a Carvel in Torrance, and we heard the Cookie Puss commercial, but it never it didn't take off like it did.
But when you heard the Beastie Boys Cookie Puss, you knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't. Jeff must have clocked that, and that was
they had a Carvel at the Old Town Mall in Torrance.
Oh, that's great.
And they had local commercials.
Yeah, no, Carvel was pretty amazing because all the cakes were just like, they would just like turn it upside down and do a different, it was just the same mold.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, it's a Fudgy the Whale. And then they turn it this way and then they just, oh, it's Cookie Puss this way. They only had the same mold for all of them. And then there was Cookie O Puss, of course, which was the St.
Irish
Patrick's
version.
Day. Yes, exactly. To honor the heritage of soft serve ice cream.
Right.
So we were talking earlier on the show about double albums and like what a double album means and what are the best double albums. like what, I mean, of course, White Album comes to mind, right? White Album,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but like what albums other than that, like
that aren't live records.
yeah,
Why not a live
record?
record?
Yeah, not a live record.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's the classic. I mean, there's XL Main Street, which has got 18 songs like our album. And, what other ones? There's, I mean,
I'm drawing a total.
Physical Graffiti is a double right.
Yeah, that's good.
And
you have Double Nickels.
Sure.
And Zen Arcade came out on the same
there's
day.
Those records.
Oh, and Daydream Nation. That's another double record.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. It's always just adds a little bit more razzmatazz to a release to have on 2 discs. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it's like any better than one. It's just
twice
as good.
No,
it's twice as much.
good. But it's also twice as hard to make it consistent.
Oh, it's a
you know?
nightmare to make them because your brain is total scrambled eggs.
Yeah. So how does that feel like when you're knowing everything's going to go on to this one?
Well, that's not the hard part. The hard part is remembering all the parts and all the unfinished parts and all the songs and like trying to keep track of everything. And it's just like, we don't record them all and finish them at once. They're all recorded in pieces for the most part.
I mean, I don't think we ever make records thinking like, oh, these couple songs don't matter, so those we don't worry about those ones. I mean, I think the idea is that because I find that you end up spending more time on songs that end up being the B-sides anyways. Like the songs that at the end of the day don't make the cut are the ones that you worked on the hardest.
Yeah, polishing a turd.
Yeah,
sure.
The old turd polishing.
Yeah.
So we avoid those. We avoid bad songs whenever possible.
Words to live by, Jeff McDonald.
Trout masquerade.
When you sense this might be a bad song, run.
I would say London Calling too, even though I know you guys are not Clash fans.
What was that?
London Calling.
Oh, London. I don't know that one so much.
What about Metal Box? Is that a 3-album set?
Well,
yeah,
it was three, but then when it was released, second edition was a double album.
Yeah,
was a double album.
The
Metal Box is 3, but second edition is 2.
Yeah.
And then there's All Things Must Pass, which is also like
that's
a
like
triple. A triple, but one of the records is the jam.
Thanks for the pepperoni. I think you're okay with that third, Apple Jam disc.
There's Second Winter, Johnny Winter's second album, which is a 2-disc, but it's only 3 sides.
Okay. Have you ever listened to the entire record?
No, but I know about it. It's a legendary record.
And then Something Anything by Todd Rundgren is a double record. And I don't know. It seems like there's something like substantial about a double record.
Yeah, like there's a statement when you're doing
I guess it's a bit of a flex, but it's also kind of like saying like we're creatively healthy. You know, like we've got all these ideas, and our Prince made a bunch of double records probably too.
1999. Yeah,
that's a double record.
Sign of the Times is a double album.
Yeah. So I mean, it could be that, you know, a sign of someone's being prolific, and that's a good thing in any art field.
Sure. Well, Todd Rundgren had Todd is also a double album.
Is that one that's a double record too?
Yeah, that one's a...
Yeah, so he was like a faucet.
I feel like you're allowed one.
Yeah, you're allowed one.
I think you shouldn't be making more than one double album.
You shouldn't constantly make
The
double
Incredible
records.
String Band made like 4 of them.
4 double albums?
Yeah, like 2 in a row. So and I was just reading their biography, and I was thinking, oh, we have to do that next. Make another double album. That's our next angle.
Okay. Yeah. What would be the next goal?
No, the next record could be a triple record.
Well, it'd be like, then you'd be doing what the Clash did, where they followed a double album with a triple.
Oh, they already did it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll do the quadruple record to outdo the Clash.
Yeah.
Or just the EP.
Yeah.
Start to regress.
Yes.
We'll go back to EPs.
Yeah. Or you could do, I mean, look, I know Ummagumma is half live, but that's
Wait, so you mean is Ummagumma a double disc?
It's 2 LPs,
but one of the discs.
One is studio, one is live.
Okay. But I think you were saying one side of the second disc.
No.
Which would be interesting. I think that's like Kiss Alive. Kiss Alive 2.
Yeah.
The fourth.
3 sides.
The fourth. It's only a 3-sided live record. The fourth side is studio.
And it's all their best stuff is on that fourth side.
Yeah, it's interesting side.
Any way you want it.
All American Man.
Right.
All American Man.
With Rocket Ride on there.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. No, that's always John Worster and I every fifth conversation just goes back to dumb Kiss songs.
You keep reverting back to side 4 of Alive 2.
Yes. It just,
Everything returns to side 4 of Alive 2.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I was growing up, I was terrified of Kiss fans. They were like the mean kids at school were Kiss fans.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not going to like Kiss because they're kids bullies. Are awful.
They're like, hey, kid.
Yeah.
Hey, kid, come over here.
Yeah. Yeah, we called them burnouts. Yeah. What did you call?
Did we actually?
Okay. Give me your lunch money.
Yeah.
What?
Well, that happened
They've got
enough
a song
to me.
Called
that was. I might as well have been my middle name. Give me your lunch money. Go to the arcade. Hey, Hey, kid, you got any money? Yeah, I do. It's like, give it to me. Okay. And then just suddenly I'm not playing games anymore.
So you never thought of like wearing a Paul Stanley star to school to protect yourself from chess bullies?
No, I just
Star of Stanley.
But I'm wearing the Star of Stanley.
Yeah, come on, guys. Let me off the hook. No, what it would always be would be I would go home and prank phone call their families. That was always like, it was like say like, oh yeah, I'm calling from the police department and your son's like.
And did anyone ever find out it was you?
Listen to this cop. No, nobody ever found out. Like, it's like,
like, we got the tip, Scharpling. We know what you did.
It's always a giveaway. It's like, oh yeah, hi, I'm a grown up, and I'm going to. Your son is in trouble. So yeah.
We've done that too. We got kids in trouble. Like, remember that one that there was remember when 976 numbers were all the rage? So they were like sex lines, and it was like $2 a minute. We pretended to be the telephone company calling about the 976 charges on this phone. Call no 976 number.
Well, someone did.
But we were too old to be doing that. We were calling it off, unfortunately.
In our 20s, like destroying 9-year-old kids' lives.
The worst one for me was like we were going through the phone book because it's late. We're drinking from some kid's father's like bourbon or whatever nightmare thing is, like whatever, just like a glass of bourbon. Like, oh,